Hey everyone, welcome to the Hope Young Adult Ministry podcast. My name is Kari White and I get to be on staff with the Young Adult Ministry, and I am here today with my friend Laura McEwen, and we are talking about a topic that is near and dear to my heart because I have a lot of experience with it, and that is counseling. I have done a lot of counseling in my life, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the questions that so many of us have around counseling. Specifically, how do we know when it is a good idea to pursue counseling? So thanks for being here with us. You're one of my favorite people to talk to. I think
we geek out.
Yes, we do. We geek out on this stuff, so you get to experience that. Mm-hmm. But I think that counseling can be a heavy topic for some people, and even a shameful topic sometimes. And so I just wanted to start out light and say you are almost done with your counseling degree, pursuing licensing in clinical counseling. And I just want to know, what is your ideal counseling office? Like that stereotypical therapist couch. Like what pillows am I sitting next to in your office while I'm crying?
Yeah. Well, hopefully not overhead lighting, because that's the devil. I hate it. And so lamps, or kind of that living room feel. Like we've turned away from Sigmund Freud, who believes that you need to be on a couch, not looking, laying down, but more just like a conversation, and you're just entering into hopefully someone you can trust and just getting to chat with them. And so I think that environment needs to reflect that, where it just be calm and casual and not like bright orange or anything, but maybe a nice soft gray. I don't know.
Walk in and feeling welcome in that space of like safe space and that home-like feeling. I love that.
Absolutely.
I love that. We get to be on staff at Hope. So what does your role at Hope look like? And how did you kind of make the shift toward counseling?
Yeah, well, weirdly, I have been on staff for 16 years. So that's a really long time. The first 8 were in Kid City. I did a stint in Global Hope for a year. And then the last remaining, 9 years, has been in care ministry. And so in care ministry, when life is like not going well, people usually come to us and we listen, pray, encourage, and then try to resource. And counseling is one of those resources. We don't have counselors on staff, but we partner with them in the area. And so, I've kind of done the counseling-ish field for a while now. Actually started grad school for this like 8 years ago, and then there was like a crazy detour, but have just started finishing up. And so now I think I'll be transitioning into the other side of it, where I get to do the counseling more often. But yeah, I've been in that kind of counseling feel for a while of just loving people and trying to encourage them in their pain. So
I have a lot of experience being in counseling. I was diagnosed with OCD when I was a kid. I think I was 9. And I started counseling, that's 20-some years ago now, because I will be 35. So 26 years, most of my life. Yes, math. Most of my life. And part of my desire to walk with people in hard things comes from that experience. And I've had a lot of really good counselors and some not great counselors. And that experience and story has drawn me to want to be a safe place for other people. What has your journey towards, I feel called to be a counselor, look like?
Yeah, so I came to know Jesus when I was 16, almost 17, when my sister's boyfriend died in a car accident. And it was just like, one of those times when you're like, oh, people die and life is fragile. And like my big life questions kind of came in that season. And I started going to Hope, as 21 years ago. And you would look at an 18-year-old dying in a car accident and being like, what's the purpose of that? What's the point? That's so tragic and so hard. And it is, and it was. But I don't know. I think that was where God planted the seed of like, I can bring beauty from ashes. And I just believe that with all of my heart. And there's been times in my life where I've seen it over and over again and in other people's lives. And so I think counseling for me is just like, I can sit with you in those hard things, and I don't have to fix that for you, but I can journey with you, and I can hopefully bring things that I've learned through education and just life and Jesus, like to engage in that. And so I think that's my main thing. I have a sign in my office that says pain is real, but so is hope. And so I believe that. And I think that's why God's kind of drawn my heart towards this side of, the field.
It makes me think about the incarnation, Jesus coming to be a tiny human who is also fragile, and what that means that God became a human so that he would know what it's like to walk in pain. And that sounds like what you're describing as a counselor. How would you?
Yeah. I mean, I think people want to feel known and feel like they're not weird for feeling broken. And so I guess that's one thing I can offer. I recognize my brokenness. And so hopefully offering a place where, like, I've lived life. I haven't lived your life. I don't know exactly what you've experienced, but I know what pain feels like, and I know also what hope feels like. And so let's navigate that together. And so, yeah, I definitely see Jesus having done that and just really relating, but yet also bringing a different perspective, which is good.
The redemption, that what you said earlier, that beauty from ashes side of things. What is the difference between a therapist and a counselor?
It's
like potato.
I do think it is, yeah. I literally had an email conversation with someone where, like, I want a therapist. I'm like, well, we have counselors, but, like, it's the same kind of terminology, right? Like, there's differences between psychiatrists. Psychiatrists have the ability to prescribe medication, and counselors don't. And so there's, like, some differences there, but even, like, psychologists, and, like, I think it's kind of your degree and things, but, yeah, I think therapists and counselors just the term and like terminology you choose to use.
Basically the same thing, just different terminology. Yeah. When someone is thinking about maybe I should see a therapist or maybe I should see a counselor, when would you encourage them that is a good idea?
I mean, it looks different for everyone based on what's going on with them, but I would say, like, once you've hit that place of being stuck, like where you just can't, I mean, it doesn't matter, like a friend's encouragement isn't really getting it, or like I just feel like I'm repeating the same patterns over and over again. I mean, honestly, I believe anyone can benefit from counseling, so I would say, like, literally, if you want to do it, but I understand that sometimes people want, like, a valid, quote-unquote, valid reason to go, and I think that we can kind of get that to those places in our lives where we're just struggling and we're not really sure why. Sometimes there's like, I don't know why I'm being triggered by certain things, and maybe I need to delve into this and open it up a little bit. So I think really if you're at all open to it, there might be a reason, and it could be a very short season of counseling if there's not a lot that's going on, or it's more easily navigated through, but some things will take a little longer, and you might opening this door might open this door, and it might lead to a couple other things, but it's leading to good healing, so it would be worth doing that.
I have kind of two follow-up thoughts with that. The first being, I think that people wait until they're in this crisis mode, and then counseling sounds like a good idea. Yeah. And I tend to recommend or even encourage, if you're in a place where there's a lot of questions, or there's a crossroads in your life and you're just not sure which way to go, or you're starting to see some stuff that you dealt with as a kid, or hard things that you went through, and you're starting to wrap language around that, but you would like more help and more perspective to do that, that's a really good time. So it doesn't have to be this crisis, this is my last, ditch effort. It can be I have some thoughts and I'm learning how to be self-aware, and I would just like some more tools in being self-aware. Because if you go then, when you do hit a crisis, because we will, because we're humans and we go through hard things, we have those tools on board already to walk through that crisis well, and maybe even that person that we can come back to later when that happens and reinforce some of those things we've already built ahead of time.
Absolutely, yeah. Definitely agree.
Yeah. The role of a counselor, I think, sometimes confuses people. How would you describe, and how do you understand your role as a counselor?
I would say I work in analogies. Maybe that's Jesus, because he did a lot of parables and such, and stories help me. And so I think the visual that comes to my mind is, imagine being in the dark, and it's like pitch black, and you can barely see in front of your face, right? Like you can see maybe your hand if you hold it a couple inches away from your face. And that's how you're navigating life. It's dark, and you don't know where to go, and you don't know what's next. And I feel like counselors have like a night vision goggles, where it's like, I can't see everything. It's still dark. It's not changing that, but I have maybe my education, my tools, my training has helped me see things in a different way. I'm also not in your life, so I have a different perspective. And so that's kind of how I see counselors, is like they're someone to navigate the darkness with you, to potentially help you start to acclimate, to your life. And so like, just like when you're in the dark, sometimes like as your eyes like adjust, you can start to see like little things that are a little bit further away and make sense of like the room that you're in. And so I don't know if that hit, but like that's the visual that like comes to my mind, is like you're just inviting someone who might have a little bit more wisdom or a little bit more understanding or a different perspective, to help you with. And then you're getting your own set of night vision goggles and you're getting to like navigate things. It's like you've built your tool belt, to navigate the hard things in the future more independently.
And because I think sometimes we think about, I broke my arm, I went to the doctor, they fixed it, I move on with my life. And so sometimes that's the expectation in counseling is my insides feel broken, I'm going to go to a counselor, you fix them, I move on with my life.
Yes. It's like we should have a magic wand that comes with the job. Like
that would be nice.
You get your degree and you get a magic wand, and then you can, I say that all the time to clients. I'm like, I wish that this job came with that, and I wish that I could make this better for you. But that's not really how it works, right? Like it's the journey and it's the effort and the client's willingness to invest in the healing journey, right? That's going to lead to a lot more benefit and healing than if you're just expecting someone else to fix it for you. And then also people think that like therapists, counselors, whatever, are like advice givers. And so it's like, I'm going to go to counseling, they're going to tell me how to fix my life. And like, that's also not what it is. You're not supposed to impose your values on a client. And so you can bring up, hey, these are options you have, but you need to feel confident to make your own choices within that. So there's a lot of myths about counseling.
Yeah. Any other, if this were like myth busting podcast, what other myths would you like to bust, blow up? This is not what it is.
Well, I think in the church, I think there's a big stigma against like, okay, well, if I go to counseling, that means that I don't have enough faith, or, my trust in Jesus is not enough. And I'm like, gosh, way to kick someone when they're down. Like, hey, you're already struggling. And then you have people who are supposed to be loving and encouraging to you saying like, oh, wait, actually it's your faith that's broken here. And that's playing into that. And so that the myth that counseling and faith in Jesus are like opposite, where it's like, oh gosh, no, I would suggest you go to a Christian counselor, someone who shares a similar belief system, so that maybe you're getting good counsel that's, pointing you in the same direction, but it's definitely not opposite of each other.
How would you, because that's something I've had to learn through counseling and through different Christian or not Christian counselors, is how does this healing process that I'm going through, because that's really what it is. It's doing the work of healing, and this is a kind of a guide, a Sherpa, right? Like this is a mountain that I am climbing, and here is a Sherpa who is helping me and who has in some way been here before. Yeah. Maybe not with me, but in some similar circumstances with others. And how would you describe the relationship between counseling and someone's faith, someone's personal relationship with Jesus? How do those things go together?
Yeah. Well, I guess if we are our mind, our body, and our soul, like if that's who makes up me, then God made all of you, right? And so he's seen all of you, and he has purposes for all of you. And so just like you would go to the doctor to heal a broken arm, there's this whole soul part of you that can be really unhealthy. And like our mind, holy moly, like let's talk about scripture that, CBT therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, these people, these founders act like it's their idea. And I'm like, have you looked at the Bible? Because there's a lot of evidence that says, the things we think on are powerful. And so that's the whole premise of cognitive behavioral therapy, where it's what you think on affects your feelings and affects your behavior. And so I think there's so much crossover of just like wisdom that God already set out that you can apply. And then you can also take in like the psychology research and evidence that like makes these things, shown to the watching world, like, hey, this actually matters too. But I don't think it, again, is like something that can't be melded together. It's integrated pretty easily. And I think God cares about it. I think he cares about how we feel and that we're healing and growing. And I think our growth comes, we don't grow when we're in, the crisis and the trauma where we're just, laying down. But when we're working on our healing, God's with us. And I don't know, I think he wants that for us. John 10:10, the thief comes only to kill, steal, and destroy, but I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. And God has this abundant life for us, and why we would not want to join him in pursuing that and just give up. Another visual that I have.
I can't wait. I love Laura's visuals.
Is like the boxing ring. And so sometimes I see myself like this, where it's like the client is literally the boxer that's in this fight. And I am like the coach who, when it's in between rounds, that person comes up and they're exhausted. And it's like I'm pouring water on their face and I'm slapping them, getting them all riled up, being like, you can do this. You can do this. You have training, and we can continue to help you see a real enemy and fight that enemy, but you have to get up and try, and so I can be with you in that, and I can bandage you up when you're hurting and you've gotten a cut or whatever. And so let me get my analogies.
I love that so much, because I think sometimes, and maybe it's just Western American culture that expects prosperity and ease and everything to feel good all of the time. And so that is what we are going after, is to feel good all of the time. And so anything that is uncomfortable, we push away and we don't want to deal with and put it in this separate other box kind of thing. But full life isn't everything feels good all the time. Full life is I am walking through and working through the fullness of my experience, which includes hard things and uncomfortable things. And so to hear you say, my goal and my heart is to give people the courage and strength to face those hard things so that they can have that full life, that my heart beats in that same way with you, because that really is where the rubber meets the road, or we see Jesus show up in the middle of our pain and shift things and transform us, and we trust and we lean in and say, okay, I'm gonna get in the ring. I'm gonna face this hard thing that I've been in a box for however many years. I'm gonna work through that because I want healing, because I want more of you.
Yeah.
And
which brings more beauty. When you watch those feel good stories, it's like the person who's been through the hard stuff, right? And it's and that they still choose to keep living, and they still choose to fight for themselves and their healing. That's the powerful story, And so I think that provides a really neat testimony to be able to say, maybe my life isn't perfect, but I've chosen the hard thing because it's worth it.
Yeah, and that's where you see the beauty arise from the ashes, that phoenix kind of. And we see that in the resurrection. We're coming up on Easter and we see that, right? There's this death that happens, but out of that death comes this full life. And so there's something mysterious about the hard things that feel like death that bring about the new life. And I think that is what counselors get to be part of.
Yeah.
And that's really beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's so many people who have experienced that talk to people who've had good experiences in counseling. Mm-hmm. You can have their hope. I don't know how this is going to go, but I see that it helped them, and I see that they're different than they used to be. And so maybe using their testimony as enough, hope in yourself to be able to take that first step.
I have one more question for you, and it's kind of from your own personal perspective even, but as you've gone through counseling and training and walked alongside some people now, what do you know about the character of God now that you've learned from that process?
He is so faithful. His faithfulness is insane to me. And I'm going to have some clients who have gone through really, really difficult things. And I'm at a loss. I can sit there and I can navigate, hey, I can try these things. But as a new counselor still, you're feeling like you do want to fix it for them. And so remembering that I believe there are 3 people in the room, in the counseling room, that it's not just me and the client, but the Holy Spirit is there. And my supervisor said she had a corner where she called it her God corner. So when she didn't know what to say, she'd just look up at her God corner and just seek the Lord in it. And so I feel like I've seen where I'm like, I don't know how this is going to turn around, God. I don't know how they're so angry. I don't know how they're going to release that. And I try my best and I ask for wisdom and the counseling, but then God's just faithful. Like, he just does the thing. And the person who's super angry at him, like, starts to soften. And the only thing that can happen, like, reason for that is God. And so his faithfulness, his like presence to be near to the brokenhearted, like that promise is true. And so I've seen it to be so true. So it's a really neat thing to be able to see his love and his unchanging, that he made these people and he loves them and he wants them to be in a relationship with him. So it's really pretty beautiful to see it. And you don't have to be like with going to counseling. Like if you're mad at God, it's okay to, go to a Christian counselor and deal with it. Like they're not going to tell you how you need to feel or whatever. They're going to give you a safe place to deal with that stuff. And so, and if you don't want to talk about God, like ethically, they can't really force you to. And so like it can be a safe place. Just because you choose a Christian counselor, don't feel like it's going to have to be one specific way. So anyways.
Yeah, those are great thoughts. Thanks for sharing your heart with us and giving us perspective on something that is so needed and sometimes cloudy in the Christian space. And so I think you brought us a lot of clarity today, and I'm always grateful for getting to see the heart of God and the love of God expressed through you. It's pretty powerful. So thanks for being with us.
Thanks.
We love you all, and if you have questions on counseling or would like resources, Christian counselors in the area, those sorts of things, we do have those available, so let us know, and we look forward to hanging out with you next time.